Hello there, my name's Buckland. I've been involved for 2 decades in chemical awareness and bringing attention to the fact that we are surrounded by tens of thousands of toxic, neurotoxic and carcinogenic chemicals that have made millions around the world very, very ill and polluted our environment, and that has been my concern. I got started actually as a result of my son 22 years ago having a violent reaction to the vaccines and almost dying, so that's when I became interested in doing this research.
The American Dental Association and other international researchers warn mothers not to reconstitute infant formula with fluoridated water. How do you feel that Australian parents are not given the same warning by our government?
Well, firstly, just straight out, I think it's outrageous that water has become such a danger to health, especially infants, that it's used anyway. The fluoride in the water is so dangerous that parents cannot put it in their infant's formula. How ridiculous is that? Poor people, they have access to only tap water, and that's a great percentage of the population now who are classed as poor. They can't buy casks of water or expensive home deliveries of water.
So how do you feel about the government not warning parents?
Well, I think the government is totally impotent, couldn't care less about the health of the people, obviously, or we wouldn't have this poison in the water in the first place.
Are any of your children especially chemically sensitive, and how does fluoride impact on their lives?
Well, I only have one son. I was actually a DES baby, so that was another foul up by government not protecting the people. But my son, after the vaccine made him so violently ill, he just was very, very allergic, chronically ill all the time. He had eczema, then terrible mood problems and behavioural problems. So yes, and he had problems after the home was sprayed with pesticides. Actually, he became very, very ill, very moody and quite violent. And I also was affected by the pesticides. They're neurotoxic poisons, of course, and I suffered major depressive illness, couldn't stop crying, and was Prozac treated for years, double dose of Prozac. What I didn't know at that time, though, was that Prozac is a very, very serious drug, very dangerous drug, and it's a fluorinated drug. So I was getting massive doses of these compounds.
And so how does your child respond to fluoridated water?
Right, well, we spent many years detoxing him, going to doctors of environmental medicine. They were the only ones who had a clue on what was wrong with my child and how to treat him. Mainstream medicine were clueless and actually very, very rude to me and insulting. So years and years of treatment for detox and certain vitamin and mineral therapies. He was really starting to come good and feeling good, looking good, and his behaviour was improving so much. Actually, he was lovely. And then about 4 months after we were had the silicofluoride poisons put in our water supplies in December 2008, it was about 4 months after that, my son came to me in all sincerity and said, "Mum, I noticed I'm feeling different. I'm really struggling to control my moods and I'm struggling to control my outbursts." And he said, "I've noticed that even some of my friends have said that they've noticed their friends are becoming more aggressive and overreacting to things." It was very, very specific, and that's become even worse lately. He's really sort of struggling, and he said drivers on the road are most abusive to him and swearing, and tailgating, high beaming him.
So what do you personally do? What measures do you personally take to protect your family against silica fluorides?
Well, it's fine to a certain extent for the rich. I mean, the rich can afford organic foods, the rich can afford whole house filters, the rich can afford great home supply of totally purified fluoride-free water to drink. But ordinary people, we have to bathe in it, we have to drink it, we clean our teeth with it, all our foods are contaminated with it, all of our other drinks are contaminated with the silico-fluoride poisons from the water supply. Alcohol, people talk about alcohol causing all this crime and violence. It certainly has surged, but we never had near the amount of violence and crime that we have, and people were still drinking then, since the silico-fluoride has gone in the water supplies. So it's in the alcohol too.
Do you use filtration systems here?
We have two of our taps, like for cleaning my son's teeth. We've got a reverse osmosis there. We've got one at the kitchen sink. But we're not happy with that either. They're very expensive. You've got to keep an eye on all the membranes. It uses 3 times the amount of water. Well, now the governments are charging us an absolute king's ransom for our water. You can't afford really to be using reverse osmosis because it uses 3 times the amount of water. Plus, it strips all the good minerals out of the water as well. This fluoridation is just an absolute disaster financially, and a disaster for people's health and long-term health in particular. For every man, woman, child, pet, wildlife, you name it. It is an absolute disaster.
The people of Queensland have not been allowed a vote on whether or not fluoride is added to their drinking water. Di, how do you feel about the notion of forced fluoridation? And do you believe people should have a vote on fluoride, or should it be banned outright, and why?
Look, the thing is, even our rights have been eroded as citizens. Our MPs are just more pigs at the trough. They do not care about the people. They're there to feather their own nests and feather their own bank accounts. They'll do whatever it takes to get what they need and bugger the people. It really is outrageous. I don't know what happened to our Australians to get up and fight their guts out for what's right. We have to get the people to do something. We're in real trouble here. We're going to be paying through we are paying through the nose for our water. They've poisoned it with toxic waste from the aluminium and fertiliser industry and called it the nice little dental name fluoride, which we're all drowning in because of the diverse sources that all these fluorides come from, which most of the people haven't got a clue. And that's the problem with even a vote. Most of the people are ignorant. I go round the shopping centre with my poison fluoride t-shirt on, and I ask a lot of people, do you know what fluoride is? And they'll go, no, but the dentists say it's good for your teeth. So we're talking mass ignorance of the population, but we're talking absolute deviousness by the puppet masters of fluoridation, getting the governments to do whatever they want.
So what about the issue of voting? Just to pull you back a little bit on that, how do you feel about the notion of forced fluoridation? And should people have a vote, or should it just fluoride be banned outright?
Okay, firstly, you've got to get the truth to the people. Now, we know our mainstream media has had a total blackout. How many years have we all been trying to get this truth through the media to get to the people? They won't touch it. They will not give the truth of how dangerous these fluorides are. They're cumulative poisons, and the evidence of harm is absolutely astonishing, and it really would. The evidence worldwide would re-sink the Titanic. I kid you not. But mainstream media for whatever their reasons are, there's just a total blackout. They will not give this truth to the people.
But surely mainstream media have children and grandchildren, and surely this affects their children and grandchildren.
But do they care? Do they care? They're just there doing a job, getting the big bucks. And the advertising. Look at the advertising that these TV stations get. Toothpaste, mainstream toothpaste, for instance. What's that? A $270 million a year deal. They don't want to lose the advertising on that. And that reminds me, how many years ago we heard from the amazing Glenn Walker, who wrote that book, Fluoridation, Poison on Tap, a remarkable human being who worked decades of his life to try and bring the truth of silicofluoride poisoning of our water supplies to the people. It was through him I first heard that the Australian government changed the standing of our, because we used to have the really, really serious poison labels on our toothpastes, and the Australian government deviously changed the status of toothpaste over to a cosmetic where there's absolutely no legislative controls at all, and they were able to take the poison label off the toothpaste.
So again, that's great. Again, I must ask you, what do you feel about the vote side of things? Should people be given a vote, and if they're given a vote, possibly could still get put through, because you're backing that fluoride is so poisonous? Shouldn't it just be banned outright? Why are we drinking this stuff?
Absolutely. Look, it should be banned outright. There is no question how these MPs and prime ministers and others can sleep at night. I will never know. Knowing, they know, because how many of us, I've driven them mad myself. I don't know how many others have sent them information. I was never rude. I sent them credible data from all around the world of how serious fluorides are. They're absolutely dangerous. We're drowning in the stuff. It's everywhere. Like, how many people would know a lot of the anaesthetics they had were fluorinated compounds? How many people are being treated? And remember, fluoride in itself is neurotoxic. So how many people have no idea that the drugs they've been prescribed, a lot of them antipsychotics, antidepressants, can be fluoridated compounds?